Hello, everybody, and welcome to Starseed Netlink. And today we're going to be doing Galactic Disclosure Showcase Season 1, Episode 8. And this one is going to be over conferences.
All right, so let's talk about in general what the conference industry is from like an NPC normie angle. So the conference industry historically has been where you have these very specialized industries that would annually meet to kind of chum it up, right? So maybe you're in like marketing, but in a specific group of marketers. You would every year you'd have a conference where everyone would meet up and it would be like, oh, we market these types of products, and it's a very specialized thing. Um, and our educational system has kind of led us to this specialization kind of complex where instead of learning physics and source connection and kind of the important things, uh, they focused on like STEM and specialization in very, very fringe categories. Um, and I think that's kind of a distortion. Most of these specializations are really, really easily replaced by better tech. So as soon as you get a better piece of technology, you specialize in this little pigeonhole, and then, oh wow, we have some new tech that replaces you. Whoops, sorry, you got automated away. Um, and so these conferences were kind of a way that you could pigeonhole people into these specializations, and then you could have them feel special by going to these conferences once a year. So um, with widespread telepathy and source connection, obviously that would be much more holistic than a specialization as a career. But typically for these conferences and in general, they'd be very corporate. Companies would pay for the whole trip, um, and it would be like a work party kind of thing.
Not only that, but you will also deal with favoritism, where they will probably try to use the same cycle of speakers and not allow anybody new to come in and speak. And when they do speak, it's just regurgitated information or information that you have already heard that doesn't really serve you any type of purpose.
Yes, it's highly specialized stuff. So, for example, I got an econ degree. My minor was in financial advising from Texas A&M University. Um, Texas A&M University started the financial advising department at that college, and there aren't that many in the country, so it's a very specialized niche, right? So they throw a what they call a financial advising conference. I think maybe they call it a summit. But I've been to it like two or three times, right? It's nothing wrong with having a conference where all the financial advisors can meet up, but it's like a really, really niche technicality. So they have like all the speeches there, all the presenters were talking about really niche topics that only financial advisors would know. There's nothing wrong with it per se, but it's largely an insider's game, right? So you had to be a financial advisor to even understand what they're talking about. And it's like technically a public event, yes, but if you're not a financial advisor, you're not going to have a dang clue what anyone's talking about. Um, but
As I guess essentially is that there are conferences where we need conferences like newbies to like go and explore and learn and educate themselves, but then we really need a conference specifically for us Starseeds or SSP people where we don't have to deal with those type of fundamental issues with normies. Like we can just go to a conference, we know that everybody's on the same page or a different page of information or experiences, and we can just come together and just talk without. And we also do understand that there also needs to be a conference for newbies, but sometimes we just need a conference just for ourselves.
Yeah, and so we kind of view the specialization thing as kind of a distortion, really, because we don't, maybe you have a specialization somewhere, or this or that. That's not a bad thing, but to force specialization on every single worker as if they need to be specialized in this and that, no, we need people to be connected with source, connected with nature. Um, but yeah, conferences aren't necessarily, they hand out a lot of these best in the industry awards at these conferences, right? So it's like, oh, we recognize what you did within your industry. And there's a lot of kind of kowtowing and kind of internal feedback loops of like, oh, I beat you and you beat me and all this competitiveness where really, you know, if everyone wasn't so specialized, we could have a lot more general conferences and have a lot more people be interested in coming. So it's not conferences are not necessarily wrong or evil, but largely they are a niche industry flexing their specialization um, as a strength. So yeah, that's kind of the background for conferences in general. I wanted to start off with that. So let's move to conferences in the spiritual awakening community, SSP, Starseed community, however you want to think of that. Um, So where is the disclosure? So, SSPs are kind of holding off disclosure as much as they can to protect their image. So the SSPs have kind of ruled in the past by having everyone in the dark, everyone kind of not sure of who they are and their soul self, not connecting to their monad, not connecting to their higher selves. Um, and we should be very, very soon here, we should be seeing um, these types of disclosures coming out as the SSP kind of you know, releases these things because they've had the info, they've had the tech, and they've been hiding behind it and creating power from that. And so they don't want to give it away, but ultimately they're being forced to because we're ascending and it's time for us to have this technology. So in quotes, the SSP's power is based on the public not knowing, um, anything about the astral, right? So, anything about their higher selves, anything about their full spiritual nature.
It's from my understanding when it comes to the SSP community. And I know this is not intentional, and I understand that people do like this type of stuff, but you have to understand that some of these speakers, not every speaker has have experienced very extreme trauma in in these SSP programs. And so when they're on stage, it's sort of like a form of gloating or a therapy for them to share it, but it's also very scary for them because whatever type of piece of information that they share is ultimately putting them into risk. On the other hand, we do need this information to be released. It's just, in a sense, we just need to know, like, where is this leading to? Is this just leading to just vent and rant about what you have learned, or is
Yeah.
it going to be more constructual, be like, okay, so this is the information, how can we constructively use this information, or how can we constructively heal people from what happened to them in the programs? And from understanding that, like, we need to also understand that the SSP programs or the conferences, people have experienced real stuff. So it's like we need to have a basis where this is where people can understand, is this astral stuff or is this actual physical 3D stuff that people have gone through? And I think that's some of the issues that are going on right now.
Yeah, a lot of these conferences have like these people sharing their experiences and kind of bragging about these kind of war crimes they committed. And I'm sorry, but these SSPs, usually serve the Black Sun or these Leviathan fallen race and intruder race groups. And so that's all kind of just war crimes. So like we're really happy that there's some disclosure about that. We're really happy that people are speaking their truth. Unfortunately, though, you know, there's just a lot of distortions with these conferences, and it's a really great place to seed propaganda. So let's continue on with the presentation here. So as Starseeds awaken, a great meeting place is at conferences, right? And on paper, going to a conference where you have a bunch of starseeds in a room is a really, really good idea. Um, because in the astral, everything's a little bit different. It's, you often don't know who you're communicating with, and you're often communicating with other versions of yourself rather than other humans here in the physical realm. Um, but we kind of want to talk about a few just general issues, and then we want to go into some details about conferences and some of the experiences we've had with them and just kind of open up the discussion. I mean, we're not really trying to like go after anyone here. But some of these experiences with conferences with us have been really disappointing. And anyway, so let's start with a few glaring issues with conferences. So the elephant in the room here is that they're typically very, very effing expensive. And like in the past, when you had your industry conference, so my financial advising conference, it would be fully paid by your employer, right? So you'd have your meal budget, they'd put you up in a hotel, they'd pay for everything. So the cost was never an issue, right? And everyone got paid well, and it was just an expensive affair, but it didn't matter because the company paid for it. When we're doing this as like Starseeds and SSP experiencers, it's not quite as like the SSP isn't going to cover your hotel stay when you go to the conference to speak out against the SSP. They're just not.
Vast majority of star seeds, like true star seeds and true SSP people, are actually dealing with poverty.
Yeah,
And they don't really have the means to actually go to a conference where they might actually meet a friend or actually get the help or
yeah.
the spiritual help or the spiritual work help that they need. at those
It's
conferences.
hard to meet like-minded people when you're in a very special, specific SSP program or whatever, and those conferences are a great place to kind of open up and meet people like that. So having it behind a heavy money barrier, a large cost barrier, is really, really tough. Also, a second issue is these conferences are often heavily surveilled by SSP and corporate negative alien agenda types. So these conferences are typically public events. So there are oftentimes there are like just people who show up and maybe they're not that interested. Maybe they look a little bit too corporate. Maybe they look like they're from the SSP and they are there to kind of spy on everyone. And so it's not necessarily safe.
I call them the government goons.
Yeah, goons.
Yeah, they're the a lot of these conferences are infiltrated by the government goons
Yeah,
or what we refer to as handlers that handle a lot of SSP.
yeah,
And we do believe that if we're going to make a conference, we really need to like make sure that those people don't get through and like
yeah. It's
don't
it's
get
just
through
very sticky because they're public events and people can show up to them, and then you would have these government goons kind of there
like
to it's a honeypot for them.
like when I went
It's not
to
safe.
like when I went to the full disclosure conference and Tony Rodriguez was there. I'm pretty sure um a government goon or something happened to the point where he basically freaked out and basically ditched his entire speech at the full disclosure conference. And this is what we're talking about where we really need to start screening people at these some of these conferences
Yeah.
so that SSP or Starseeds don't have to fear being targeted when speaking their truth.
And really like a 12D Maharic seal, like those government goons aren't going to do so well with 12D. So if you had a really like Law of One conference, it wouldn't there just wouldn't be government goons there because they wouldn't be able to take the energy. And that would be an easy way to fix that. Screening everyone is really hard. Um, but yeah, what James Rink, is that his name? He was actually murdered. In he put on what the secret space program super
Super
soldier conference or whatever. Yeah,
activation conference.
activation conference. Yeah, exactly. And he was actually murdered by the SSP because he was awakening too many people at it, or he said too much, or something of that sort. So the safety at these events is like very, very dubious. In addition to that, another line of how it's unsafe is many people come to these conferences and they leave these conferences and then they're sick afterwards.
Yeah.
And really that is astral parasites. So you have a field, your field is either coherent or it's not. And so if you go into this conference and maybe your field is coherent and then maybe you get tired, and maybe there's like some archangel channeler, and then they like there's a hole in your aura, and then all of a sudden the archangels are in your aura, and it's like that's not really for your highest and best light. But you're at that conference, you're in the room with them, they're there, their stand is there. If you're at the conference, they're there with you. So all of a sudden they're kind of in your field.
Yeah, this is so
Not very
essentially
good.
is that we when you go to some of these conferences, it's probably very good to have people who specialize in cleansing areas or cleansing or shielding areas to do that first or do that constantly throughout a
Yeah,
conference
constantly.
so that people don't get astral parasites and stuff. And this is where star seeds can actually use some of their true abilities at some of these conferences where they're protecting and also healing other people and activating them in a
Yeah,
sense.
but it is very difficult to make sure the room is clear because many people come to these conferences and they have astral parasites. So they're even if the room is clear, the crowd could walk in and then half the crowd could have astral parasites, and then all of a sudden you're in a room with a ton of astral parasites. And I don't have astral parasites in my field, but if I'm in a room with a bunch of people who haven't done their full shadow work, they're connected with the grays, they're connected with the negative alien agenda, they have SSP altars that are messing with them, their shadow self is not in alignment with their highest and best light, there just can be parasites abound. And so it's, um, there are definitely all sorts of people who don't maybe have the best cleansing. And if you're in the same room of that with them at this conference, that's, that's a risk, right? So we just wanted to bring attention to that too. We often hear about like what's his name? Rob from Journey to Truth. Rob from Typical Skeptic podcast has mentioned a number of times that, oh, I went to this conference, came back home, and I was so sick. And like, it's a very common thing to hear. And it's just like, that means you went and you got taken advantage of and loosed, man. I'm so sorry. Like, you should have had your Rasha area Crystar up, your 12D protection vehicle up. and maybe you would have had better luck with that. But also, like those rooms were tough because maybe the room isn't clear. Maybe all the people walking in aren't clear. Maybe one of
Not only
the
that,
stands
but we
is
also have to talk about
channeling bad energy.
we also have to talk about their crystals and tools and stuff that they use can also be not cleansed
Can
as
be
well.
possessed. It can have demonic attachments. There's all you're inviting all sorts of these types of things that could have attachments with them if they're not cleared properly. And how are they going to screen that at the door? I mean, that is it's just it's a very tough concept here. So we want to kind of talk about conferences and point out some things we don't like about them, but also we don't necessarily have all the answers on this, but we want to just have everyone aware of what's going on at these conferences so you can be safe.
Yeah.
Okay, so the elephant in the room when it comes to conferences in my book is that there are very, very, very few law of one creators. So my channel is very specifically law of one, right? Law of one being the highest and best timeline for all, right? And when you connect with that flow, you're connecting with the infinite flow of natural organic source. You're connecting with your guardian councils from dimensions 12 through 15, where there's no polarization, there's no choice. You're simply just that's a collective. The collective is, and the collective is aligned, and that is all there is, right? And so um, really, when we go to these conferences, there's very, very little law of one representation. So conferences are really a place, a breeding ground where the SSP message, the SSP propaganda can be seeded, can be born, can be birthed. And they put big lights up, they introduce everyone, and there's big music, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this SSP guy really knows what he's talking about. Well, maybe he does, yes, but is he law of one? The answer is likely no. The SSP is not law of one. Many of these people who are involved in the SSP programs haven't done the work to be law of one as much as they can be. And if you're doing the work to be law of one, look, you might not be law of one every second of the day, but it's more about, oh, maybe I made a mistake here, or maybe I did something that wasn't quite law of one. I'm going to realign myself. I'm going to realign myself continually. And a lot of these SSP people don't even have the word law of one on their mind. So what I'm trying to say is these conferences are like a hotbed. They're like a honeypot. They're like a breeding ground for all these different types of SSP propagandists. If you have a propaganda narrative you want to spread, going to a conference and having big lights and big speakers and Master Chief helmets and all this Halo references and bullshit, and that's a great way to get people excited about your message. But all the same, it's not a law of one message at all. It's so dangerous.
Not only that, but I do also want to let people know, and I think a lot of people are starting to understand this, is that when you're dealing with a lot of SSP people, you're also dealing with alters. And I have noticed when I went to the conference where people switch personalities, and 1 second they're really nice to you, and the next second you can tell that they're a completely utterly different person. And that seems to be another issue in the SSP, and I have dealt with that a lot. And the SSP programs, I understand that it's not their fault, but when you can't literally sit down and have like a phone conversation with somebody to order to clear something up personally
Yeah.
with an SSP person, that sends a really, really a wrong message, or sends a really, really main issue that we can't like sit down and actually talk with people and stuff. And I think that this is was essentially what's going on with the SSP and stuff. And so even the SSP community has issues, but if we understand these type of issues and figure out an agenda before going to conferences, or at least have a specific type of niche of a conference where super soldiers can come and learn how to handle or control some of their alters.
Yeah, that would be cool. The one thing you said, Audrey, is it's not necessarily someone's fault that they have an altar. So look, from a timeline point of view, you chose that path. You allowed that to happen. You're a co-creator, you're a manifester. And if you co-created that reality for yourself, there were lessons for you to learn there. So it's not that it's not your fault or it is your fault. It's more that it's your responsibility, right? Everyone has a fleet of higher selves, right? So the even number ones are going to be your night side, your shadow self, and then your odd number ones are going to be your light side. And so, you need to, it's your responsibility as a sovereign individual to make sure that you are in alignment with the law of one and your shadow selves are aligned to the highest and best timeline, right? If you're simply aligning yourself with the highest and best timeline using non-polarized light, your Maharic seal, my cleansing protocol on my channel, I just re-released it. That's a really good way to align yourself with the ascension path, the infinite flow of natural organic source. And really your shadow selves will fall in line because you're supposed to have a shadow self. It's like you're not supposed to defeat it, right? But we're also not supposed to let your shadow overtake your light side. And then altars are like artificial shadow selves, right? So created in these like mirror realm timelines, these timelines that didn't really make the cut, right? There are all sorts of timelines, and only a few of them fold into the main timeline. So the SSP created these alternative timelines and put you on these 20 and back missions and things. I'm sorry about that, but it is also your responsibility to tame. It's basically, you have to call those alters back to you and then release them back to natural source. So either they're falling in line with your highest and best light, or they're going back to natural source. And if you're on an unnatural timeline, that timeline is just not going to fold into the main timeline because it's not natural. It's made in a black hole universe, which is eating itself. So I think people really like in the SSP community, they're like, oh, I have alters. It's not a big deal. They fucked me. I'm such a victim. That's a victim victimizer implant in your field, right? All you have to do is call the alters back to yourself and then release them back to natural source. And there may be some trauma release with that. You might be crying when that happens. The first time I did that fully, I bawled, right? It was very intense for me. I had multiple sessions where I like cried,
I think
but it's your responsibility to handle all the pieces of your source, your soul, your energy fragments across time and space. And if the SSP took some and puts them in a fucked timeline, we're so sorry that happened to you. You also kind of chose that from a higher dimensional point of view, and it's your responsibility to handle that. So when you go to these conferences and everyone has these altars running around crazy, everyone's shadow self is out. It is a really, really energetically dangerous environment to be in because those people have not done their homework. They're not law of one aligned. They have not called their altars back. They have not reined in their shadow
I
selves.
think a lot of
Dangerous.
SSP people think that they can't be healed when in fact that they can.
And it's the whole point to
But
be here and
it's a
heal.
very, very tough process. It's a very difficult process, but it's like it's getting to the point where you can heal yourself. It's just, are you willing to go down what?
That path, yeah.
Yeah.
And like a lot of times it's tough on your own. So I had to work with Becca from Soul Based Life to I had my SSP experience was with like Project Pegasus in this timeline a little bit and then a lot more in other timelines where they had me opening portals to other realms because I have some abilities with time portals and things. So anyway, when I realized those were in my field and I had all these tangled wires above my head in my astral, when people would look at my aura, they see tangled wires. I had to go in and do a session with Becca to get that cleared. And then I had to work and do many sessions with myself to get it cleared. And then I also had session with Indigo Angel where we worked on getting those cleared as well. So it took multiple sessions for me across multiple months to clear all that, and it wasn't easy. And I don't have a lot of memory of those because I was mind wiped every single time. So other people might have horrible, guns and violence and killing memories. I'm sure that's much more difficult than my path. But for me, I had to go meet with someone who wasn't me, and they could say, "Hey, KAVi, you got a lot of tangled wires up there, and you got people helping you out with it, but you ultimately have to do the work to do it to fix that yourself." And I was able to, do the work with Becca, Indigo Angel, do some clearing sessions with myself. I called them the Seraphi, and 14D Seraphi, and they were able to help with that. But I had to call them in. It was all my doing to fix my altars, right? And people have this notion that, oh, because like the consent was kind of shitty and they kind of kidnapped you, oh, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It is. From a higher dimensional point of view, you chose that lesson to learn in the Earth School of Earth 606. You chose that lesson. So it's your responsibility to rein those altars in, or you're basically a threat to everyone else if you're not maintaining your shadow self, if you have these altars running wild. Um, so let's continue on with the presentation here. So um, there's a lot of these like specialists at these conferences. And let's just go through some of the a lot of the groups a lot of the types of beings. These are generalities, obviously, but there's all sorts of types of people at conferences. All right. So there's starseeds like us, right? But then there's also a lot of SSP, it says SSP killers is probably a strong take, but there are many people who have been in these SSP programs and they have done horrible things. And we're not saying they're bad people. Everyone's on their ascension path at the Earth School of Earth 606, right? But a lot of these people they have not addressed their issues, right? Star Wars is a really good kind of metaphor. The Sith in Star Wars is really similar to the Black Sun and the SSP kind of corporate training programs. And it's like going to a conference where a bunch of Sith show up and they all get angry. And it's like, these guys are SSP killers, and if they haven't dealt with that and they haven't tamed their shadow self, they haven't released their alters back to natural organic source, it is really dangerous. We also have a lot of government goons at these conferences. They're spying on you, they're handlers. It can be dangerous. When I first awakened, I would go out I lived in Austin, Texas, and I would go out to Austin, Texas, a big Draco presence there, and I would have some Draco goon following me everywhere. And I'd turn the corner and I'd see him. And I'd turn the next corner and I'd see him. And he would not stop following me. And I couldn't get him. I would just be trying to go to a couple shows downtown Austin, have some fun with my homies, bunch of musician friends, and there's a handler, a government goon, SSP, Draco type following me, and his hat was down over his eyes. He was playing games. He was trying not to be seen, but he wanted me to see that he was following me. So that type of stuff is not very cool. So be very wary of that.
We just don't want new star seeds or clueless star seeds to be taken advantage of energetically wise or loosed at
Yeah.
some of these conferences. So this is just something for people to be a little bit more aware about what is actually going
And
on.
to be clear, those government goons, if you are being followed by some government SSP goon, I've had it many times. It is not a big deal. So there's something called common law, right? So basically, they can't touch you. In common law, if there's a victim created, then you can go to court, right? So a victim would be like if they yelled at you or touched you or something, a guy can technically follow you in a crowd and it's not unlawful or it's not illegal or anything. Maybe if they're stalking you, you can file some legality, whatever. But like that's not really going to work. So what I'm getting at is they don't have any power over you if you're being followed. Do not trip about it. Be sovereign and know that like, hey, you're awakening and people are taking notice. And some of
Well,
those people noticing are not friendly, and that's a shame.
one of the things that they also did mention, or one of the things that I have also learned, is document everything. If you think that you're being watched, document it. If
Then you
you
can always go back and check.
and and this creates a log. And once you have this log, you can take that to court and file for like a restraining order or anything like that because you have a records of it.
Really, I would say this: the restraining order stuff is hard to get through a court. What's much easier is to do is to pull 12D light into your field with Maharic seal, and then use, my cleansing protocol is aligns you with directly the ascension path, directly the path to higher dimensions with the law of one, and then also like the Rasha Area Crystar, which is a 12D protection vehicle. So these SSP goons are not in 12D, right? They're not like to be in 12D, you need to be law of one, right? To be connected with those energies, you're gonna have to be as law of one as you can, and you're gonna have to maintain that as best you can. So, if you have a 12D protection vehicle up, these guys really can't touch you. So, and then they lawfully can't touch you either. So they can scare you, they can like follow you and all this shit, but really they can't touch you. And if you have a good astral protection vehicle, they definitely can't touch you. So I wouldn't be too worried, but it's not a good, it's very suspect. Let's just say that. Let's move on here. There's also at these conferences there's a lot of these like archangel and like born again Christian Jesus channelers. And like so if you're a starseed, like the religious narrative kind of falls on its face really fast. So when we have these archangel and these Jesus channelers, I mean, these are people who are taking these religious distortions and they are trying to wrap them in a star seed package. And so that's really, really troublesome because these archangels actually, the archangels are like the nice younger sister, and then the demons are the mean older brother, and the younger sister and the older brother are always together. You always get both. You don't just get one. And so it's very suspect. There's all sorts of people who like, oh, Jesus channel message. Like, shut up, man. No one wants to hear your religious distortions. It's a distortion. It's incorrect. And by bringing that into my field, you're introducing polarization in my field where polarization need not exist. So I hate that nonsense. All the power to those people on their ascension path. We're not hating on any person, but this born again Christian nonsense, this archangel nonsense. Those beings are not your friends. Not your friends. I repeat, they're ETs with their own problems, and maybe they had a role on the planet in the past. That's great. But you have higher selves. You don't need to communicate with no archangel. And like, I'm sorry, like, you want to communicate with a 12D being, call the guardian councils in. You don't need to speak to an Office of the Christ being. One of the Office of the Christ, there were three Jesuses, three Yeshuas. One of them is an Anunnaki trickster who's fallen. One of them is a 9D Pleiadian as well. And then there's a 12D Yeshua of the Nazarene, who was a guardian starseed, right? So all those three narratives got folded into this one Jesus narrative, and you get the trickster, and you get the Pleiadian, and you get the guardian at the same time. So you don't really know what you're getting when you read a channel message from Jesus. So anyway, I would be very, very cautious of this archangel Jesus narrative stuff. In addition, we have the negative alien agenda. So we have these really popular, a lot of the really popular starseed, YouTube channels are like negative alien agenda, right? So they're either allies with the Grays or like the Dracos, a lot of like dragon messages, or there's like, oh, my Gray family said this, and like, oh yeah, they are aliens, but like like, look, there are a lot of different types of grays, and maybe there's some parallel timelines where that's a future version of humans. I really, 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 really doubt it. I think that's a great excuse to kind of come and steal your DNA. And so, that's a negative alien agenda. We don't really want to be giving those people views or clicks. And when you go to a conference, those channels are really popular. They have a lot of support. So they're going to have a lot of audience come out and support them. And so, you're really calling in a lot of grays. We also have the Anunnaki, which is kind of like the blood magic, this dark satanic magic. And then we also have a ton of Galactic Federation channel messages. Oh, the Federation's here to save you. Like, no, man. The Galactic Federation fell from the law of one. They fell from the infinite flow of natural organic source. They deserted their Emerald Order contracts with the Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order. And so these are fallen beings. These are just fallen beings. So I would be, and they're often cloaked by, these really cute creators. Oh my God, I'm such a cute little girl. And like I met the Greys and they were nice. How cute. And I'm not trying to mock anyone, but like that's just not sovereign. It's not sovereign at all. It's embarrassingly not sovereign once you understand what the law of one is. And then when you go to these conferences, those people are so popular. So they have tons of people coming out. And I think that is really dangerous, right? So these people mean well, but they're spreading distorted, non-law of one teachings. Again, there are very, very, very few law of one creators. And so when you go to a conference, it's a honeypot for all of these distorted teachings. So it's a propaganda breeding ground. Be very careful. So, Audrey and I were supposed to go to a conference this year. It was in May. I'm not going to say the name of the conference, but it was a big one in Sedona, and I'm sure everyone's heard about it. Um, but basically, as the date got closer, the leader of the conference actually invited a lot of non-law of one guests who are spreading very, very forwardly spreading um, SSP, distorted teachings, Leviathan races, Leviathan intruder race, fallen races, propaganda. Um, and so some of these guests were actively SSP propagandists. So I want to just draw attention to two of them. These names were like huge red flags for me, and I was like, how the hell did I buy a ticket to this conference if this guy's coming? I don't want to be in the same building as this guy. So the first guy, and we're not bashing you, but you're spreading distorted teachings, man. And some of the groups you're involved with are really, really, really not law of one, and they have had horrible histories with mistreating humans on this planet. So we're going to draw attention to that today. If you want to come speak with me on my channel, you want to come speak with Audrey and me, we'd love to have any or either of you. If we're not calling you out, but we're saying that you're spreading distorted teachings and it's very, very dangerous propaganda. So the first one is Ishmael Perez. So in a number of his videos, he talks about himself being an Aldebaranian hybrid. So Aldebaranian hybrids actually grow no facial hair. And the guy has dark hair and he never has any facial hair at all. It's the cleanest shave I've ever seen in my entire
I
life
think he did admit at the conference that
that
he
he was an Aldebaranian hybrid. Yeah.
yeah.
He admitted it as such. And he talks about Valiant Thor being his higher self or something very similar to that. And he does a lot of channeling with Valiant Thor. So I think he's an incarnation of Valiant Thor in this realm. Um, so there's a YouTube channel called The Young Elder. They do a lot. The Young Elder covers a ton. I don't his stuff is a little bit pro Nibiru for my liking, and it's not Law of One at all. But he covers a lot about the Aldebaranians doing fuck shit to the planet with Hitler, with um basically Valiant Thor was involved with like these deals with Eisenhower to kind of keep the public in the dark, while the SSPs and the off-world Germans had all the technology and were like ascended, while the public was left in the dark thinking that the US won World War II. Valiant Thor was directly involved with that. That is a huge non-law of one kerfuffle, clusterfuck. It's disgraceful at all levels. And there's all these narratives about Valiant Thor, he's saving the humanity and all this shit. That is nonsense. Nonsense. Nonsense and a half. It is disgusting. It is despicable. It is probably war criminal and genocidal as well. And we're not sitting here trying to call people out, but you know how many people have been trafficked off this planet because of that deal that Valiant Thor and Eisenhower made? Millions. Millions have been trafficked off this planet and turned into cyborgs or eaten or drained of their blood with satanic rituals. So we're not trying to say this with a light heart. We're saying this with a heavy heart, saying that you need to stop spreading this nonsense propaganda. Um, I think we cover. I don't want to sit here and bag on the guy. A lot of the information he portrays is very interesting, and I still have watched some of his videos. All the same, you need to understand if you're going to watch his video that you are in a direct channel with the Aldebaranians who are propagandists. They are liars. They are non-law of one, and they have very, very ulterior motives to this planet. So inviting him to the conference was the biggest red flag I could possibly think of. It's disgraceful and despicable. The person who did that conference in Sedona in early May. of 2026. A complete disgrace. Another guest, we actually covered her work. We did a book review on her stuff because the distortions in her work was just so profound. It's so distorted. And so in her book, Lily Nova actually quotes her book Contact. I think it's page 189 or something. I have to look it up, but basically she says that she calls in Metatron before every meditation. And so Metatron is the Metatron collective fell from dimension 12 to dimension 11, and they're actually responsible for this Kabbalah tree of life 10D bullshit. Right?
Everything about this is public,
Yeah,
just to let
watch
people.
our last videos. We covered a few Galactic Disclosure Showcase episodes. We covered this in vivid detail. We gave Ashan and Dean backing up what we're saying here. We're not just saying that we don't like you or something. I've watched a lot of your videos, Lily. We tried to have you on our channel. We invited you. You said you were interested, and then you backed out. So it's open invite. You're welcome to come on anytime. We'd love to talk with you. Give us a time, give us a date. We'd love to do it. But you basically mention in your book, you open your field to Metatron every single meditation you do. The logo on your channel is a Metatron soul siphon. And furthermore, in her book, she describes specifically that her dad and her uncle, in quotes, sacrificed themselves um, for her ascension. So no sacrifice is required for ascension. That's not how ascension works. You align yourself with the infinite flow of natural organic source, the law of one, the highest and best timeline for all, and then you merge with your higher selves and ascend. Right? There's no sacrifice required. So there's been all sorts of like things about people went to her sound bowl sessions and got sick at conferences. And so like I mean I know she's a staple in Sedona. I know she's
I
famous as a huge channel.
I know that she said that it wasn't her.
Yeah, and then she's tried to say that's a baseless claim. Maybe it is, but I definitely heard that a number of times from people, and all sorts of people get sick at conferences. I mean, this is like, and she's at all these conferences doing these sound bowl sessions. Sound bowl session, there's nothing wrong with a sound bowl session, but when you're calling in Metatron before you do it, all of a sudden you've opened up a Metatron soul siphon sound bowl session, and then everyone who shows up gets loosed. And to me, that is like you're basically like attacking people without them even knowing it. I mean, you're like assaulting them, basically. It's almost assault. It's energetically horrible. It's completely atrocious. But I just want to say like both Ishmael and Lily Nova, we also covered in some of our Galactic Showcase disclosure episodes. Elizabeth April falls into this category too as well. She's a little bit less at conferences, a little bit more book tours. But these people are all spreading very, very, very distorted teachings.
Yeah,
Be very careful.
this conference video also goes aligns with the ego video that we did
Yep.
as well.
And check out our ego video. We go through a lot more of these channels and tell you why we think their teachings are distortions and what the distortions are. So you can go and use your discerning mind, your heart coherence, your law of one connection, and really understand that what they're, if Lily Nova thinks that her dad and uncle sacrificed themselves so she could ascend, she doesn't know what ascension is, right? There's no sacrifice required, right? Basically, she sacrificed them to Toth with a blood sacrifice. And like, I actually was involved with helping some of those beings in the astral who were stuck in that karmic loop free themselves. And so, like, I have hands on experience with that exact conflict, both now and in the past. And, time is kind of a messy thing in the astral, but and again, it all comes back to the law of one. These creators are not necessarily law of one, and they're spreading heavily distorted messages at these conferences. Be very wary.
So, from what we're trying to do is we're trying to let people know that we want conferences that are more aligned with not just setting out personal propaganda or just making money, but more geared towards trying to help humanity and help other people ascend in a sense.
Yeah, the ascension process is about healing yourself, aligning with the law of one, and ascending. Right? It's not really about YouTube views. It's not about making money. Right? Time is not money. Time is art. Right? So, like when we see these people, it's just these conferences have so many distortions in them. So let's move on. Why we didn't attend that conference? So Audrey and I ended up talking with some Law of One creators, and basically, we were going to go to this conference and be one of the very few people who could hold the light amidst a ton of distortions. And basically, as time went on, even though I had tickets to the event, it's just incredibly unattractive to us to show up, spend a ton of money flying out to Sedona, and then basically have to like be on like holding the sword and the shield and being very defensive because we know everyone is so full of distortions there. That is very unattractive. I don't want to show up to a room where there's a ton of astral parasites, there's a ton of SSP goons, there's government people trying to stalk us. It's very, 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 very unattractive. It's also incredibly expensive. Yeah, so ultimately we were happy to miss the event. And even though we bought tickets, and all the power to those people who made money on that. But ultimately a lot of these lectures got posted online anyway, and I listened to a few of them, and like they weren't not I don't think any of them were Law of One. It was completely fucking embarrassing. I know Indigo Angel spoke there, and I'm sure she had a great presentation, but so did Lily Nova. So I don't, yikes, man, yikes, 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 yikes. Um, so I know if we had gone there, I would have gone in the Q&A and like really, really ripped Ishmael Perez apart. And maybe it's good that I didn't go there and do that. We tried to reach out to Lily Nova to get her on an interview, and she initially said yes and then declined. The offer is open for Ishmael. Offer is open for anyone we've mentioned. You want to come here and argue the law of one with us? Well, the law of one's pretty straightforward. Highest and best timeline for all. If you're not in alignment with that, we're happy to talk to you about that, because that is the entire ascension game here, connecting with that law of one ascension path. Um, so let's see. Yeah, this is the PowerPoint kind of goes on here.
Do you want to go on to the next
Let's do
one?
the next slide. Yeah. So let's turn this more positive. What would be an ideal conference, an ideal meeting up of the Starseeds, right? Because right now the Starseeds are all segmented and fragmented at different places, holding the grid together, which is great. But what if we wanted to have a conference that was positive, right? What would a positive conference look like? So one of the ideas was maybe we make it more like Coachella, and then less like an industry specialization conference, right? So maybe you could have camping. Maybe you could have the conference for an entire week.
Like some people like camping because it's cheaper. Some people want to do RVs. Some people want to be in a hotel. So it's be a little bit more flexible for what people can do.
Yeah, and what if
And
it was like a whole week long and it was just a big open area and there were just all sorts of different people? It wouldn't fix the problems with the astral parasites. It wouldn't fix the problems with the government goons, but it would allow it to be less of like a pigeonholed, oh, this is our conference and I'm getting this award and I had all these achievements. When you have 15 stages, all of that kind of washes away, right? And something more like Coachella and less like, the financial advising conference of 2026, highly specialized industry conference would be, I think, a lot more beneficial. And I think we can get a lot more done in terms of activations, research, collaborating, meeting people if it was a bigger group, more of a Coachella and less of like a specialized industry conference. Some of the non-starters we have for a conference that would be successful would be pricing. So, if it's expensive, it really just includes everyone. Coachella is notably very expensive, right? So, um, that would a free, basically what I say is the best rock shows. I'm a musician, right? So some of the best rock shows were when the Beatles played in Hyde Park out in San Francisco. So they had these free concerts, and then thousands of people just showed up because it was free. And when there's 1,000 people in your audience instead of 100, it is a different ball game, right? Completely different ball game. All of a sudden, you're like a celebrity just being on stage in front of 1,000 people. And so, like, if we had like free concerts rather than very expensive concerts at a fancy stadium, if we had that same metaphor applied to conferences for the SSP or Starseed Awakening community, I think that could be really, really positive. Why not just have a free conference? Why like I'm sorry, but like I think some of these people running these conferences are trying to make tons of money. And why the hell would you need to make money off people? We're trying to get everyone ascending, not make money off them. Why not just have a free fucking conference? It's disgusting to me. And they're very specialized. So yeah, in review, most conferences are not here to help people ascend at all. They are a bragging fest. They are completely ruled by monetary influence, money influences, and they're so goddamn expensive, right? There's SSP goons everywhere. There are government goons everywhere. There are people trying to hack into your shit and fuck with your field. It's unsafe with SSP using sonic weapons. James Rink actually was murdered in connection with his super soldier conference. So he put his conference on. I guess someone said a few too many things and he got murdered. And like that is not safe. That no one wants to go to a conference where people are getting murdered. That's real fucked. And then many conference goers go home sick afterwards with astral parasites or someone brought something into their field. Um, so beyond the conference mentality, what are we kind of here to do? In general, there's a massive lack of law of one creators. If you are aligned with the law of one, if you understand what the law of one is, we'd love to see you start a channel. We'd love to bring you on our channel and talk with you. If you're a law of one creator, reach out to us. We'd love to have you. So where are the source aligned creators? All right. Like the Fae people are very source aligned. The merfolk are very source aligned. The whales are very source aligned. The dolphins are very source aligned. These are our neighbors. All right. And then we got humans over here who are doing fuck shit with the SSP, and then they're going to go to a conference and brag about it. Excuse me, what? I don't think so. We got to have more Law of One creators, and if you feel called to do it, don't let me stop you. Get going. We'd love to feature you on our channel. And again, we visualize like a large Law of One gathering that would be free, and it would be many, many, many times more beneficial than any conference we have to pay thousands of dollars. You got to travel out to Sedona. You know, again, the free concerts at Hyde Park drew more people than a sold out stadium for a sellout artist, right? I mean, it's concerts are expensive nowadays. A free concert with a band everyone loves would draw tens of thousands of people. Um, why can't we just all together and chant the Shari Ure Akum Tan instead of going to some conference and paying thousands of dollars? The SSP would lose if we did things like that. That's why our conferences are so jacked up, because every time there's a conference, the SSP shows up and fucks with it. All right. We would be calling their bluff if we all just got in a room and chanted the Shari Ure Akum Tan for hours and hours and hours. It would really, really mess up their negative grids on this planet, which are actually being destroyed currently, or in process of being destroyed. So yeah, essentially, if we started doing stuff like that, they would probably try to disperse us as rioters. They would probably use frequency weapons to hurt us and kill us. So we're still in a situation where some of these conferences are not quite safe. There's a lot of red flags. So we just want everyone to be cautious and aware. We're not saying don't go to a conference, you know, do whatever you want to do, but there are just tons and tons and tons of red flags.
Yeah, I think right now, in order to give a summary, is like what would you see as a more positive conference? I know that a lot of people have either had good or bad experiences at conferences. We just want to let people be aware
Some of the
about
risks.
about what's going on at some of these conferences, but also in the future, like how can we have a conference that is a lot more affordable for people in the community to go to and hang out and heal themselves and connect with other people that can actually help them and connect and basically podcast together and share ideas with, instead of just constantly worrying about money and whether or not they can go or not.
Yeah.
It's just like, what are some of your ideas as the audience of what would you like to see at conferences? um what are some of your bad experiences that you have had at conferences that other people should know about or be aware of? But
Yeah, we'd love to hear your feedback. We have another Q&A scheduled for 2 weeks from now. If you got questions, you got comments, you got concerns, good, bad, ugly, you want to get on, you want to interview us, you want to be interviewed by us, you want to promote your channel. If it's Law of One, or maybe you're spreading distorted teachings and you don't think it's distorted, we'd love to talk with you. In terms of conferences, everyone loves a free punk show, right? If you're in the music scene, free punk shows is where you meet all the coolest people, right? Because no one's got to pay. Everyone just shows up and has a good time. And we'd love to go to a conference where it was fucking free. And maybe you had to pay for camping or whatever, but the conference itself was free. And there were tons of people that showed up and we could talk Law of One, right? Or at least have a chance to talk Law of One, and not some SSP infiltrated propaganda event. So I think that's kind of all I had. Did you have anything more, Audrey?
no, thank you guys so much. Please comment, like, share this video, subscribe. Also please check out KAVi's YouTube channel as well. I do also have my spiritual consultant services. So does KAVi, if you guys want any coaching from us. But thank you guys so much for listening. Let us know what your feedback is in the comment section, or you can wait until our Q&A session in the next couple of weeks. So
Yeah, and on my channel, I posted a new cleansing. So my cleansing protocol was good and everything, but I wanted to add, I say it a little bit differently in my personal life, so I wanted to add the updated version. So I uploaded that yesterday, and I put some frequencies in the background, so it's like really aligning when you listen to it. It's 20 hertz and 528 hertz. So it's really strong. So let me know what you think of that. And my channel is Lord underscore KAVI 777. So trying to grow the fan base. Audrey has a huge fan base, and y'all are so good, and you comment a ton, and we love hearing your comments. If you want to hop over to my channel is a little bit more strictly Law of One, less space school, less learning about different things. It's more Law of One. So I'd love to hear your perspective on it. If you think I messed something up, if you think I got something wrong, I'd love to hear it. Anyway, I think that's all I got. Peace, love, and sovereignty. Sovereignty, not saviors. And speak the eternal ELAYSA flame.
thank you guys so much for listening.